Welcome back to the game Objects project in Autodesk Maya. So in this tutorial we're going to cover how to make an oil drum. As you can see here, I've already made one along with several other objects. I'm going to turn off the other objects real quick here so I can just turn off the visibility of some of these, column, this guy, and the ground layer. Let's go ahead and turn that off too. So the oil drum here, if you look at it, and you can see it's got some smoothing around the edges there, those little bumps. I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's got a couple little guys here. But the main form here, if you think about it, is pretty much a cylinder. So we'll go step by step and basically try and replicate this. I have a photo of it over here on the right that I found on the internet. So you can always look at photo references and kind of use it that way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my shading mode to wireframe unshaded. I like to see the actual vertice lines and yeah, the faces, and just, it's just easier to see the form overall. So we're going to start off with a cylinder for the main form. So I'm going to click on the cylinder in the poly modeling shelf here. And as you can see, you could measure this out. The default unit is centimeters in Maya, so we could measure out how many centimeters high. You can look that up online. But I'm just going to kind of guesstimate and kind of basically go off what I have here. So I'm just going to hit the R for scale tool and basically just kind of scale it up a little bit, to the right, about the right thickness, approximately like that. And I'm going to grab the green and just kind of scale it up a little bit, and something like that. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. And then for me, it's a little bit, I have mine flat on the grid there. So this one isn't quite flat on the grid. I'll kind of scale it down just a smidge. So probably something like that looks pretty good. So it's the easiest form to actually kind of create. This one's a little bit fatter, it looks like, from the top view, so I could scale it in just a smidge to match the one I have there. Again, this is all very, very subjective. Unless again you're using actual measurements to figure out, what would the scale be for the actual object. So I'm thinking something like that will look good. Okay, so the next step here is to, I like to have a cap on both ends, so I'm going to add an additional one. If I go in the poly input here, for this, again, this is in the channel box, I'm going to choose divisions 20 is fine, but under caps I'm going to add 2. So I can easily select that and scale that out, and then I could do that on the bottom also, which is kind of nice. So the tools I'll be using primarily, if we go to the modeling toolkit, click on this little guy, will be the insert edge loop tool, which I have in my custom shelf here. And you can find that under the mesh tools. So here it is, there's the insert edge loop tool. The other one that's really nice is the offset edge loop tool, and that one I'll be using a little bit. And then under the edit mesh tools, we'll use the extrude, so we'll be using that, which is also over here in the modeling toolkit. So I think I'll add though the offset edge loop tool to my custom shelf. If you want to do that in your custom shelf over here, if you already have it, which do I have it in here? I always forget what the display looks like. So I'm going to take a quick look here. The offset edge loop tool. I think that's already in here, but I'm going to go ahead, in order to add it to a custom shelf, if you go to it and hold Control and Shift and then left click with the mouse, that'll add it to your scene here. And this icon is a little bit different than this one. So this one's merge verts. This one is duplicate the selected edge loop. So it's also known as the offset edge loop tool. In order to drag this to my custom shelf, which yours may be hidden, it may be like this, so you have to kind of drag this little guy up to kind of find it. Right in between here, you can hold the Control and Shift and click on it with the middle mouse button and literally drag it over and then release, and then it will be in here. So that's pretty much how you get it in here, like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the insert edge loop tool, and I want to create 2 edge loops here to start off. So I'm going to choose multiple edge loops and just set this to 2, and then I can close out, and then I can just click here on the side just like this, and it'll add my 2 edge loops, and pretty much that's approximately where those are at, which is great. Then I have to click on the arrow to escape out, and you have to do this one at a time, so I'll double click on this one to make it active, and I'm going to use this offset edge loop tool with this. So if I click on it, the way it works, you click and drag the edge, so I can middle click and drag to get a couple edge loops offset from it. So I'm just going to release once I get something like that. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to undo. I'm going to drag and just kind of offset a little bit there for that one. And then I'm going to click out to escape out to stop the actual tool from working. Now if I double click on this, I can make the middle one selected and then hit R and scale it out a little bit. And this will give me that softening effect here on the edge. So all I have to do is do that with each of these. Double click on this one and kind of pull it out a little bit. And then when I hit number 3, you'll see it kind of gives you a smoother preview of this. Now I added some bevels on mine to get it a little bit better. So I'm going to hit number 1 to bring it back. The other thing I want to do is I want to add an edge loop on the top and the bottom for these little rails, the bottom and top here. So I'm just going to click the edge loop tool again, insert edge loop. I'm going to drag one there, and then one about like I don't know, about here, so it looks pretty good. And then I'm going to click on the arrows again to escape out, and then I'm going to go into face mode. Again, you can click on the face mode here. I was on the edge mode here. I like to right click and use this little widget here, so I'll go to face mode here. And this time I'm going to extrude out these faces along here. So I'm going to click on one of these faces, hold shift and double click, and I'll get the whole loop. And then I'm going to use the extrude tool, so the extrude tool here. And then I'm just going to pull out the blue arrow and pull it out a little bit, and I'll get like a nice little edge loop that'll kind of extrude out. Give it a little bit of thickness there, something like that. Looks pretty good. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. Double click again, click on one, hold the shift key, double click on the other one. And this time, since I already did the extrude, I could hit the G key. That'll repeat any action. And then basically just click on the blue arrow and kind of push out a little bit here. Again, the blue arrow represents the normal direction. So that's always kind of the way usually you want to push out on it. Now at this point, I want to maybe extrude this stuff down a little bit. You can see there's like an edge. I could do it different ways. I could bring this part up, or I could bring this part down. But knowing the height of this kind of matches this one, I think I'm just going to bring these faces on top down a little bit. So I'm going to use my go back to object mode and then go back to face mode, or just click out. That's what I should have done. I'm going to click on the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to literally just paint across here. And paintbrush tool is pretty nice for this because it's real easy to select. But sometimes it gets a little finicky, so it takes a little bit of time to click here, you know, and I'm just going to go around. Another way to do this, I like to do it this way sometimes, is I'll go to my ortho views like this one, click out, I'll show you another way, and I'll just marquee select this area, the alt with a square tool. And it did that whole top, but you'll see it also did the bottom. So I can deselect the bottom by holding control and just dragging across. And that's just a lot faster for me to kind of work. You can always check by hitting number 4 to see in wireframe that those faces are selected. I do recommend doing that. And then hit number 5, and you can see that just those faces on the top are selected. So let's go ahead and do the extrude again. And this time I'm just going to grab the blue arrow and kind of pull down. And then finally, I guess it's just this little insert area here. I'm going to click out. I'm just going to drag over these little guys. And again, I can hit 4 to see there's some faces selected here. So I'm going to control drag across those to deselect, hit 5. And this one I'm just going to scale it out a little bit. So I'm going to hit R and just scale it out just so that I get a little more tension to the edges along there, which is kind of nice. After that, what I could do is, we're pretty close to being done with the main form here. If I hit number 3, it's definitely starting to look like a barrel. You can see there's certain areas though where it's a little flat in here, flat in here. So what I would do now is choose some lines maybe to bevel. So I can do that in edge mode here, and I'll just I'll double click on one of these and hold the shift key, double click on every other one. I'm not going to do the middle ones because I want those to be the way they are, but I'll do some of these other bevels. I'm just going to double click on any of these that I want to add the bevel to. And let's see, I'm going to do it underneath here. I'm just going to double click, and then I'm going to rotate around, and I'm going to do these also, double click, and I'll do the inside loop also. So basically those are the loops. You can see that I've checked. If I hit number 4, you can kind of see the ones I've kind of selected there. Hit number 5 to go back into shade solid mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the bevel tool. You've seen this last tutorial. Click on that, and this time I'm going to type in let's see, 0.2 for the fraction rate, and then I'll put 2 divisions. I think will be good. And then let's go back to object mode on this, and then hit number 3. Let's take a look. So that looks pretty good. I feel like it definitely has similar form to that one, and it looks pretty awesome. So the last steps I'll kind of leave to yourself for the most part. Basically, if you look at this little cap here, it's basically just a cylinder. If we frame in on it, that has been extruded, and there's not even really a bevel added. Maybe a bevel on the outside edge here, but you can kind of see it. Just a couple little bevels here, or an extra edge loop. If I add the smooth preview mode on that one. And then this one is pretty much the same, except extrude inwards. I will show you how to do this one real quick. This one is a little bit different because it looks different. You're like, wait, that doesn't have the same amount of sides. So I'll just kind of show you that piece real quick over here again in the center. So the way it works, you just add another, if we could poly modeling mode shelf, click on the cylinder again, and we can bring it up so we can see it. Just hit W and kind of bring it up. And right now, if we go into the channel box, it's under poly input. It has 20 divisions here, so I could set this to a lower number, like 12 for example. And I think that's what I had it at, was 12 on that one. It might have been 8, so you could go as low as 8, and that will give you more of the sort of faceted quality that you're looking for along here in the photo. If we zoom in on the reference here, you can see here, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, this one has actually 8. So if I had 12 in the other one, I was wrong. So then I would just scale this down, basically just make it kind of small and flatten it, make it kind of smaller, and then kind of move it over, into place. Maybe it's a little bit wider and then just flatter, looking like something like this. And then basically just move it over. But that's pretty much all you have to do is, and then finish off with a couple more little cylinders, and then you have your cool oil drum. In the end, I would group these and finish them off. I think I'll have a separate tutorial on how to do that though. And yeah, we'll do that. We'll end this here for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll cover on how to model another object. I don't know which one yet, but we'll see. Until next time, see you soon in Autodesk Maya. Cheers.